Hello and welcome back to another FPL video. Today we're taking a look at the 5 best players that you have to pick up for your team if you are going to be using your wildcard chip in game week 30. Now as it stands, we still don't know when the upcoming double game weeks are going to be and the blanks for those respective teams. So personally, I do still slightly prefer the game week 31 wildcard, but obviously we do have FA Cup matches over the course of this weekend, and we could potentially see the announcements for double game week 33 and past that before the game week 30 deadline. So that could be a nice opportunity to use your wildcard. Again, if you didn't use your free hit last week, you probably don't have the likes of Crystal Palace and Newcastle players who are the ones that you are going to want to be focusing on because they do have that guaranteed double in game week 32. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the upcoming fixtures and some of the important stats to decide the 5 most important players to have on a game week 30 wildcard. So the first player we are going to be looking at today is going to be Daniel Munoz from Crystal Palace. He has very clearly been the best defender that you can have in the last, 8 or so game weeks. Since about game week 20, he's been absolutely on fire and he is looking like a really nice option. Now, as I mentioned already, if you are using the wildcard in game week 30, you could have the opportunity to bring in lots of Crystal Palace players and get that match against Southampton, which is going to be a really nice one, probably one of the best, or if not the best fixture that you can have in the league. Of course, they do have that guaranteed double in game week 32. Despite it not actually being the best double game week, it is still a double game week against Manchester City and Newcastle, both away from home. But again, like I said, if you're using the wildcard, you really want to be making the best use of Crystal Palace, who do have Southampton this week. Brighton at home is obviously a big derby as well. Could definitely see them doing something in that match. And then of course game week 33 is going to be Bournemouth. So not the best fixtures in terms of fixture wise, but they do still have a really good run, mainly with the double game weeks. There is still a possibility that they do have a double game week in game week 33, which will see that Arsenal match in game week 34 potentially move to game week 33. Now in terms of Munoz's stats, again you can see in the middle of the graphic, in terms of attacking defenders so far this season, he's only behind Trent Alexander-Arnold for expected goal involvement, and again even in the last 5 game weeks, despite being one match down after blanking in game week 29, he's still sitting in second place, just below Ryan Sessegnon for expected goal involvements in the last 5 game weeks. So he's absolutely looking like the number 1 priority defender for me if you are going to be wildcarding this week. Now, one that you would think is probably going to be an obvious one, but we do have Mohamed Salah in here. There is a lot of people who are contemplating and starting to take him out. Of course, he has dropped in price in recent weeks, in recent game weeks, because of the amount of transfers out that he has had. But for me, he is still absolutely essential. Again, the number 1 pick in any wildcard team, whether that's defence, midfield or attack, it's got to be Mohamed Salah at 13.7 million. Again, he has broken the FPL points record, putting him in the position of having the best FPL season of all time. So you don't want to be missing out on that player for the remaining 8 game weeks, especially when his fixtures look as good as they do. Obviously, he doesn't have a double anymore. He is very unlikely, or I believe maybe even guaranteed, not to be doubling for the rest of the season, with Liverpool not being in any more competitions. But despite that fact, he still has fantastic fixtures for the run up to the end of the season. Again, 3 green fixtures and 2 orange fixtures in his next 5 game weeks, including the derby with Everton at home and a match in there against Leicester as well, where he could really do quite well. And even though he doesn't have the double game weeks, he has still a really nice captaincy opportunity for the likes of that Leicester game, even Everton at home in this upcoming week. Obviously, you will probably be prioritising the double game week players for your captaincy, but it is always going to be really nice to have Mohamed Salah in the back there, who is probably, definitely going to score 10 plus pointers against the likes of Leicester during that double game week. Again, still backed by the stats, attacking midfielders at this season, he's obviously at the top, and in the last 5 game weeks, he is also sitting at the top. So despite again, arguably not being in the greatest of form right now in the last couple of game weeks, he is still right up there for expected goal involvement, and do expect him to continue that. And of course, with Liverpool only having the Premier League now to focus on, he's not going to be getting a lot of rest, if any rest, and he's going to be playing most of the matches. And again, I believe he still will be banging in those goals. Now, the next pick is, again, another pretty obvious one. It is going to be Alexander Isak, who is probably going to be your most essential striker. So that's us got a defender, a midfielder, and a striker now for a wildcard in game week 30. But again, Isak, similar to the likes of Crystal Palace players, has that guaranteed game week in game week 32. What gives him the advantage over the Crystal Palace players, as well as his double game week looks a lot more favourable, with 2 home fixtures against Manchester United and Crystal Palace. And even then, before that, his fixtures are looking great, and after that, his fixtures also look really good. Again, I think he is basically guaranteed to play in game week 34 as well, which is going to be a huge blank game week. So if you don't have your free hit left over, you are going to have Isak for Ipswich at home, who is looking like a really nice captaincy option for that week. But yeah, very good fixtures for the upcoming game weeks, and of course that double in there as well. As far as the stats go for this season, he is only behind Haaland when it comes to expected goal involvements, and in recent game weeks he hasn't actually been too great. In the last 5 game weeks he has only accumulated 1.4 expected goal involvements. However, again, he did blank in game week 29, which is going to put him at a slight disadvantage to players who have had 5 games in the last 5 game weeks. But he is sitting at 14th. But I do really think with the fixtures, the better fixtures coming up, Newcastle have had a run of kind of difficult fixtures in the last few weeks. I think with the better fixtures coming up, we could really see him start to climb his way back up the table, and really expecting him to see a lot more points on the board. Next, we're going for another Crystal Palace player, and for me, Ismaila Sarr is definitely a really good option to get in midfield. I think trying to build a wildcard 30 team, I have kind of struggled to fill the midfield. You know, I think when you're wildcarding at this point, you might have a bench boost left over, and trying to fill 5 midfielders of decent playing players seems a little bit difficult. But for me, I think Sarr's definitely up there with one of the better ones, potentially second only to Mohamed Salah. 5.6 million makes him really nice value as well, and he's owned by 4.5% of the game at this point, and I would expect that to, you know, really increase in the next couple of game weeks. Again, similar to Munoz, it does have the double in game week 32, which is of course guaranteed, and again, you are going to be getting him for that Southampton fixture, and if his ownership stays as low as it is right now, it could be a huge differential for this week if you pick him up in your wildcard. Now again, he does have the underlying stats to back him as well. Again, in terms of attacking midfielders for this season, he's sitting in 6th place for expected goal involvement, which is fantastic considering the first half of the season he was very low down. So it has been a big recent surge from him in the last 8-10 plus game weeks, and again, you can see his form as well in the last 5 game weeks attacking midfielders wise. He is only behind Mohamed Salah, and again, he is another player who did blank in game week 29, which means he's only had 4 matches in the last 5 game weeks, and he is still sitting in 2nd place for expected goal involvement. So I think he is looking like a really good pick. Again, I think he links up well with Mateta as your 2 Crystal Palace attackers if you are going to be tripling up, which I definitely think you should be doing. I think Munoz, Mateta and Sarr are looking like a fantastic trio. And finally, we're ending it off with Dan Burn. Now, he is a little bit of a different pick as to what you probably would have expected in this video. But again, if you are going to be wildcarding in game week 30, you definitely want to be prioritising Crystal Palace and Newcastle players, which is why 4 of the 5 players in this video are from those 2 teams. Now, outside of Isak, it does seem a little bit difficult trying to pick 2 more Newcastle players to go for, and I think a defender is definitely going to be one that is needed, and for me, I think Dan Burn is going to be the best option. He's 4.4 million, which does put him in the cheaper bracket of Newcastle defenders. The likes of Fabian Schär is about $1 million more than Dan Burn is, so you're really looking at Dan Burn or Livramento. Livramento is 4.5 million. Now, of course, again, we've already mentioned doubling guaranteed in game week 32, plays in game week 34, and the Brentford fixture at home in game week 30 is a very favourable one for a potential clean sheet as well, especially game week 31 as well with Leicester, who are I think the worst attack in the league so far this season. Now, when we compare Dan Burn to the other Newcastle defenders around him, over the course of this season, he's sitting in third for expected goal involvement. He does provide a good goal threat. In terms of expected assists, he is fairly low in that regard, but again, headers from corners is where he really can excel, as we saw in the final of the Carabao Cup. Now, of course, Lewis Hall is out injured, so that does rule him out, and again, Schär is second for expected goal involvement so far this season. So I think maybe if you've got enough money in the bank, you could go for Fabian Schär, but I think that million is going to be better used elsewhere, and you are probably better just going for Dan Burn. Over the last 5 game weeks, it is Livermento who does top it for Newcastle defenders, but he only has 0.4 expected goal involvement. So the Newcastle defenders don't really provide a lot of attacking threat, which is something you can see. So I think you are best just going for the nailed starting player in defence who is potentially going to be picking up clean sheets, and you can easily bench Dan Burn at 4.4 million as well, so he's looking like a very, very solid option. Now, before we wrap things up, I do want to throw in an honourable mention, which is going to be Erling Haaland. Again, he is looking like a great pick towards the end of the season, but he is just that little bit expensive where he does or could potentially cause problems in your team. So we've got the reasons for having him and some reasons which could cause some issues. Now, of course, he does have a double in game week 33, which is a very, very favourable double as well with Everton and Aston Villa. You could expect him to do really nicely, and he is probably going to be a big differential this week with the Leicester fixture at home, where he is a potentially good captaincy pick too. Again, great fixtures for the upcoming game weeks, no red fixtures in there, so he is looking really, really nice. But my reason for not having him as an essential pick is because of the return of Bukayo Saka. Now, if you're going to have Mohamed Salah and Erling Haaland in your team, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to fit in Saka as well and have a good 15 players if you are looking to use your bench boost in either game week 32 or game week 33. The budget's going to be very difficult, and I think it is going to be a big struggle to fit all 3 of those premiums in your squad. Again, at the start of the season, when he was scoring hat-tricks every game, it seemed that he was going to be absolutely essential for the entirety of the season, but he's not really been supplying those big hauls. I think he's only had 2 double-digit hauls in the last 10 game weeks or so. You can see it on screen of how well he has been doing, and personally, I just don't really think it's worth the money. Again, Saka is back in training at the minute with the rest of the Arsenal squad, so you are definitely going to have to consider him in upcoming game weeks as another pick alongside Salah as a premium. And I think when you are trying to fill, a bench of playable and decent players that are going to get points for a bench boost in game week 32 or 33, Haaland just doesn't really fit that bill. Of course, I do think there is a couple of alternatives you can go for. Of course, there is Marmoush, who is again essentially half the price as Erling Haaland. Potentially got some midfielders in there, the likes of Savinho, Foden. I don't really think they match Haaland in that regard, but they are always alternatives that you can go for to save yourself, about £8 million to put it towards a decent enough bench boost for points. So that's going to round off my Wildcard 30 video. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more FPL content. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll have a captaincy video and a team selection video out before the deadline, so make sure you turn on notifications so you don't miss out on those, and I'll see you all in the next one.